So it's late summer and we have an abundance of blackberries in our garden. The kids are really good about eating them straight from the garden, but I just wanted to come up with some blackberry recipe ideas. I was walking through Target and I saw this mini cast iron skillet and I said, you know what? I am going to make mini blackberry cobblers. And you can't have cobbler without ice cream. Therefore, I created this recipe, mini blackberry cobblers and blackberry ice cream. If you like today's Bake With Me, you can also find my recipes on my blog, www.leanna'snest.com. All right, now on to the mini old-fashioned blackberry cobblers. We are going to start with the cobbler and preheat our oven to 400 degrees before we do anything. After preheating our oven, we're going to start by putting 3 cups of flour and 1 teaspoon of salt in a mixing bowl to start on the cobbler crust. Now the next ingredient I'm adding is oil. For this recipe, I chose to use roasted walnut oil. It really gives it a rich and delicious, slightly nutty flavor, but you can really use any oil of your choice. Besides olive oil, I wouldn't use olive oil. I'm going to be adding the oil to the mixture, 1 cup total. I like to add a half a cup at a time just to keep track of the texture of the dough. If you find your dough is a little bit too dry still after adding in your oil, you can add a little bit more until you achieve the desired consistency. This is the consistency that you want to see. You want it almost the texture of cookie dough and to be workable with your hands. This is the consistency of the dough you should ultimately have. You should be able to pick it up and press it and it keeps its shape but not crumbles apart too much. Now we're going to go on and move to the cobbler filling. After adding 4 cups of blackberries to my mixing bowl, I'm adding 1/2 cup of sugar, then mixing it all together. Now, you can use fresh blackberries or frozen blackberries for this recipe. If you are using frozen blackberries, just make sure that they're thawed before you use them. Okay, after I mix that all together, I'm going to take 1/2 of a fresh lemon and I'm just going to squeeze to get the juice out of that using my little lemon squeezer. In total, I'm going to want 1 teaspoon of fresh lemon juice for my filling recipe. I am using a half teaspoon measuring spoon. So I'm going to use this twice. And then I'm just going to mix it all together and just make sure that it's evenly dispersed. Now the last thing I'm going to add is 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and make sure that is mixed together well. The cornstarch is a thickener for the filling mixture. You want to make sure that is really mixed in well. Like I mentioned, I designed this recipe for individual cobblers. I picked this mini cast iron skillet up from the Hearth and Hand line at Target. I just thought it was so cute and it would work perfectly for my mini cobblers. So I'm going to start placing the filling in the pan, being careful not to fill it up too high because it will bubble over in the oven. I'm going to fill it about 3/4 of the way full. And then I'm just going to make sure that I get some of the juice from the bottom in there to make sure that I get all of the flavor for even distribution and the cornstarch. The last thing I'm going to add before putting on my topping is a little bit of butter. I took 1 tablespoon and I cut it into 4 cubes for the 4 different mini cobblers. Now it is time to add the topping to the cobbler. And I don't do anything fancy or like roll out my dough like I would for a pie or anything. I just kind of smash it and spread it out a little bit and then place it on top of the cobbler. To me, cobbler is something that's just really like more rustic and homey, and it doesn't have to look perfect. It's really about how it tastes. So I'm just going to press the pieces of the dough so that I can have most of the cobbler covered. It's okay if there's some small spots that are open, and the juice will bubble up a little bit. So ultimately in the end, it's going to look perfect no matter what. Now you're going to get ready to place your cobbler in the oven. Your oven should have been preheated to 400 degrees. I always place my cobbler on a cookie sheet with an oven liner so that if it bubbles over, it won't cause a huge mess in your oven. You're going to be baking this for 35 to 40 minutes until it's just lightly brown. On to the second part of today's recipe, the rich and creamy blackberry ice cream. I have a small saucepan on the stove and I have a pint of half and half. I'm going to be placing about half of the half and half, so about 1 cup, in the pan. Then I'm going to be adding 1 egg yolk to this half and half in the pan. And I'm going to be whisking it together until the egg is all blended in. Then I will turn the stove on to a medium heat while whisking it constantly until I see small bubbles forming. At that point, I will turn it down to the lowest setting, whisking it occasionally. At this point, I'm going to take the remaining half and half and pour it into my mixing bowl. Just as a reminder, keep an eye on the egg mixture on the stove. As soon as it starts the small bubbles, you're going to turn it down to a very low temperature. I'm also going to take heavy whipping cream and add 2 cups, the whole pint, to the mixing bowl as well. After giving that a quick stir, I am going to take the sugar and add 1 cup of sugar. I am using a half cup measure, so I will put 2 of these in the bowl. But total, you want 1 cup of sugar, and you are going to mix that all together. Next, you're going to take the remaining lemon juice, and you're going to add a half teaspoon to the ice cream mixture. And I'm just going to give that a quick stir. And then next, you're going to take vanilla extract, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla to the ice cream mixture. I am using a half teaspoon still, so I will add this twice. And once again, I will stir everything together. Now my egg and half mixture from the stove should be finished, and you should set it aside so that it can cool to room temperature before adding it to your ice cream mixture. Once it's cooled to room temperature, you're going to just make sure that everything's smooth and whisk it around and pour it in with the rest of the ice cream mixture. Then you're going to give everything a stir to make sure everything is mixed together well. The very last thing I'm going to add is the blackberries. Now, I forgot to mash my blackberries before putting them in the ice cream mixture. You should definitely do that so there are not so many large chunks of fruit in the ice cream. I added a half a cup of blackberries. Now you can use any type of ice cream maker. Today I'm going to be using my Cuisinart ice cream maker. I just got this one, but I have used one just like this multiple times before in a cooking class I taught. It's super easy to use, and the great part is that you don't need any ice like my old retro ice cream maker I used to make ice cream with. So I am just going to add my ice cream mixture to the bowl that I had in the freezer. It's not a very large bowl, 1.5 quarts, but it's perfect for this recipe. I'm not sponsored or anything by Cuisinart, but I will link the machine in the description below if you are interested in purchasing one like this. I'm just going to put my mixing paddle inside, put the cover on, and push the on button. It's that simple. And we're gonna have ice cream really soon, folks. It really doesn't take very long at all for the ice cream to form. But guess what time it is? Our cobbler is done. It looks perfect. This is what your crust should look like when it is done. Let me just say that both the cobbler and the ice cream are a huge hit with my family. It just makes the perfect summertime treat, and I hope that you take the time to try this recipe.